Hello everyone and welcome to another Wavelength series. My name is Waveney. I am your leadership mindset coach and I help new managers master their mindset, their communication and develop their influence. Now, are you ready to get on the same wavelength? Drop an emoji, a thumbs up in the comments if you're ready to get on the same wavelength. Now, backstory before we start. About a month and a half ago, I had a conversation with someone who follows me on social, and they mentioned that they enjoy these podcasts, the YouTube videos, and they mentioned they hadn't seen them in a while and so forth and so on. So we chit-chatted on that. At the end of it, they asked that I do a podcast on stress. So I was like, yes, absolutely, that's great. That's a great idea. Now, when I had time to think about it, I sort of struggled with it because I, at the time, was going through a very stressful situation. I was going through a stressful situation. I was processing it. I was in the moment, and I'm like, I don't even know if I am the one who should be talking about stress, right? Yes, me, the coach who shows up, tells you about work-life balance, gives you all these tips. Yes, I was going through, I was struggling. I have to admit I was struggling. And so I thought, should I be the one? But there's something inside me that really wanted to do this video because I feel like since COVID-19, the world has changed. I think that people now are really they're really stressed out, they're really burnt out. Mental health now is a huge priority. Within the Caribbean, it's being talked about a little bit more, but resources are still limited. And so I really wanted to do this video podcast for you to share with you something that I have observed, and especially about burnout and stress. So let's get into it. So before I get into the meat of it, let me ask you a question. Have you been doing all the right things? Like, have you been setting the boundaries, those ones between your work and personal life? Really separating work. When you're home, you're home. When you're at work, you're at work. Are you practicing self-care? What about managing your time? Are you managing your time well? But do you still feel exhausted? If you've said yes to any of that, do you still feel exhausted? Like, are you still feeling like you're dreading work, or that you are running on empty? Even after all that, do you feel like you're hanging on by a thread or a tether, right? Do you feel that way? Because I'm familiar with that, like just barely hanging on. So if this is you, if you've said yes to any of those, it may not just be a burnout problem. I know that you feel like you're burnout. I know that you feel stressed, but it just may be your environment. It just may be your environment. And so, like I mentioned, when I thought about this episode and I started doing the research, what I realized was something really interesting, and it is this, that there are actually two types of burnout. Two types. And if you don't know which type of burnout, then you're going to be applying the wrong solution to that burnout, and it's not gonna work. And so before I get into it though, let me share some statistics with you. So 53% of managers report burnout compared to 48% of all new employees. So 53% of managers report burnout compared to 48% of all employees. In the Caribbean specifically, 50% of employees experience poor mental health, and it cuts the Caribbean productivity up to 4% of the GDP, right? With tourism, I know it's a mouthful, with tourism and hospitality having the higher rates of burnout, right? And I work in hospitality, my 9 to 5, so I can tell you, when I read that, I was like, oh my goodness. And if there's anybody who works in hospitality, you definitely know. And I didn't read all of the statistics. I have some more here, but I didn't read all of it. But I wanted to share this with you because burnout and stress is a very real thing. And what I found interesting is the one with the 4%, it affects the productivity in the Caribbean. It cuts Caribbean productivity up to 4% of the GDP, right? And this is so true, because when you are in that mode, you're not productive. Now, these statistics don't say, they're just statistics, they're just numbers, right? But they don't say why people are burning out. And that is a real question, and the one that we're going to answer today. So if you're someone who is experiencing a new manager even, and you're experiencing stress and burnout, drop an emoji in the comment. So let's talk about the two types of burnout. The first one is burnout that comes from being overworked, right? And it can look like you have too many tasks and not enough time. Long hours, no breaks. You're wearing too many hats, which simply means you're doing the job of different people. I've certainly been there, right? Not enough resources and support. So you may be new in the role, but there isn't that, you didn't have that training or what have you, no support, right? And it could be people or what have you. Maybe you don't have enough persons on your team. Then the last one is, it's a good environment, but it's just too much work. The volume of work is too much. So this is what the overwork burnout is. But what it feels like, and it's important, and I want you to really pay attention to these because the two types are so different. What it feels like is physical exhaustion, right? You just need to rest. You need the time off. You say things like, if I just had if there was just one more day in the week, or, more hours in the day. We say things like that. And that's how you know that it's overwork burnout, right? That's what it feels like. But here's what helps you. Better boundaries between work and your personal life, delegation, and this is something that new managers struggle with a lot. Delegating, it's a tool that you're gonna have to learn, but we'll have a separate conversation on that. Time management, managing your time, creating. I'm a big fan of checklists. I once had a boss years ago who was a big fan of them, and I love checklists. Create a checklist for yourself, right? Saying no. Sometimes we are helpful, and we feel like if we say no, we're the bad person, we're not being kind, but at the same time, we're overworking ourselves. So learning how to say no, taking vacation. Sometimes we haven't taken that vacation, that much needed rest that we need. And also implementing self-care practices, because the world is an entirely different place. And like I mentioned, after COVID, I feel like there's a larger sense or a heightened sense of awareness around mental health and how people are treated at work and all that sort of thing. But also, we are living in a time where it is stressful. There are changes all the time. There are wars. There's things that are going on in our economy. So much things are going on, and the world is immigration issues. So much is going on. So the world is a much stressful place. So when you have that overwork problem, right? Burnout. Work is not the problem. The work is not the problem. If you fix the workload, then you fix the burnout. And that's how you know. That's the type 1 burnout. So let's talk about type 2 burnout. So the type 2 burnout, let's call that the toxic environment burnout. Toxic environment burnout, yes. And if this has I haven't even started, right? But if this resonates with you, drop an emoji in the comments. So what does this look like? Let's walk through that. So what it looks like is undermining. You're at work and your boss is undermining you, or someone on your team, maybe somebody who's there for a long time, but usually it's somebody in a higher position, right? They're undermining you. There's a lack of psychological safety. I spoke about psychological safety a few years ago. I'll link it down below so that you can have a look at it, at what it is, right? I'll probably come back and do another video. But basically it can look something like you're afraid to speak out, like you're afraid. And when I say speak out, it could be something as simple as you're afraid to share your opinion. You are afraid to share your views because it seems like if you share it, it's not safe. People think that you're against them. Yes, there are people in the workplace that actually, if you disagree with them, you're public enemy number 1. I know that all too well. So it also looks like being set up to fail. You feel like you're being set up to fail. There's constant criticism or unrealistic expectations. Like people are giving you something to do. Like this has happened to me. You get asked for a report without any context, with little or no context. So you know what the report in your mind, what it should look like, but you don't have any context to really help you to pull through that report so that it is solid, right? And if you're a high performer like me, a high achiever like me, you know that doesn't wash, right? You need to ask questions, but then the person who gave you that instruction just kind of disappears, or they don't have the time. That's what it looks like. No, it looks like blame. There's a lot of blame in toxic environments. You're being like the scapegoat, right? Scapegoating, or being scapegoated, if that's a word. There's an attack on your reputation and your work credibility. And that is what it looks like. And so if you're going through that, I am so sorry. But what it feels like, that's what's happening. But what it feels like is anxiety, because your body's responding, right? So it feels like anxiety, hypervigilance, meaning that you are on a heightened sense of awareness. You're just like on high alert all the time. You second guess yourself. So that looks like, and again, I am bringing in examples from my personal experience. It looks like you're rereading emails so many times, and so that you're reading it to make sure the tone is correct. You're reading it so that you make sure that you answer all the questions. You're reading it just to ensure, right, that it lands well. You're rereading, you're second guessing yourself. So it could be emails, it could be other things. You are dreading work. You're dreading. There's this sense of dread. You pull up to work, there's this sense of dread. You're being called into meetings, there's a calendar invite that pops in. You start to feel that sense of dread. You're starting to feel like you're the crazy person. Like, is it me? Is this normal? Like, am I the problem? As a meme said, am I the drama? Is it me? Like, you're starting to feel that way. You're being isolated. So people are excluding you. So you're excluded out of meetings, you're excluded out of emails, you are placed in isolation, so to speak. Then there are the physical symptoms. Your heart is racing, your palms are sweaty, your tummy is hurting, and it's not the butterfly type kind. Like, these are like something is pounded against your tummy, right? And you don't know who to trust. You don't know who to trust. Okay? And I want to pause here and share with you that these are real situations that people go through. And this is how you know it's type 2. Like I mentioned before, yes, burnout is real, stress is real, but there are 2 types. So what doesn't help? Let's talk about that. Because when we are not aware of the 2 types of burnout, we are applying the wrong solution to the burnout. So what doesn't help is like long showers, you know, nice hot showers with scented candles or bubble baths. That doesn't work. People telling you, have a glass of wine when you go home. Oh, relax, have a glass of wine. That doesn't work. Alcohol doesn't work. Time management apps, because you're trying to manage your time. But the thing about it is, when your senses, when your body is sensing a threat from the physical environment, it is reacting, and you're not that part of your brain, your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain that does that planning and all that good stuff for you, it's offline, goes offline. So those are not going to help. Going on vacation, you're just delaying it, right? You're just away from it, but it doesn't take away anything. Positive thinking, you cannot outthink your way. You cannot outthink your way out of a toxic work environment. You cannot outthink your way out of a toxic work environment, because, as I mentioned, your body sees the environment as a threat. Now, God made us so wonderfully, so beautifully, that He gave us the tools. Long time ago, when people lived in caves, I'm sure you've heard people talk about it. We had the threat was real. Bears, lions, maybe in the Caribbean, we didn't have any of that, but the threat was real. Okay? And so we still have those natural instincts. We still have that part of the brain, right? It's called the amygdala, that will take over when we sense a threat. And this is what is happening when you're in a toxic work environment and you have toxic burnout, toxic environment burnout. Okay? So because the environment is an issue, doing self-care is not going to fix a toxic workplace, because the problem isn't you, the problem is the environment. No, I'm gonna pause here, because think about it for a minute. Maybe I'm talking, you're looking at this and you're like, oh my God, this is exactly what I am going through. And that is why I felt that even though I was going through my situation, I'm like, when I started thinking about it and thinking it through, I'm like, this is going to help someone. And so I really hope that at this point, this has somewhat helped you, because when you don't know what's going on, when you can't name what's going on, you know what you're feeling, you know what you're experiencing, but you don't have anybody to talk to, you don't have anyone who has had that experience, it's really, really difficult. And so even by listening to this and knowing that there's someone out there that understands what you're going through, it will help you feel a little bit in control, right? And so here's why all this is important to know as well, because new managers, let's talk about new managers. Now, my content can work for all managers, but in my coaching, I focus on new managers. So new managers are particularly vulnerable to type 2 burnout, which is a toxic environment burnout. And it's because they are the middleman, right? They have their direct reports, their teams, and they have their leaders who they have to report to. They have to execute goals and visions, and they have to learn to manage up, get along with their boss, manage their teams. And when you think about it, it's a lot, because if you're a new manager, you're in a toxic work environment. It's going to be difficult because you're a new manager, you're trying to learn your job, you are trying to establish rapport with your team. You have these issues because you want to prove yourself, right? You want to prove that you are the best person for the job. You're learning your role. You haven't developed strong relationships as yet, and you may not even have enough context. Maybe it's a new workplace you're in, and so you don't have the history and the backstory and the politics, and so you are totally unaware, and you may just be thinking that the issue is you. That can happen, right? Let me add another layer to this as well. Let's bring it all the way home to the Caribbean. So in the Caribbean, we are a small community, right? Our islands are small. There's some islands that are larger than others, but this plays, because of the size of us, it plays a role. Reputational damage, when we talk about people damaging your reputation at work, that can spread on a small island, right? You may feel like you can't do the job, like there's something wrong with me. Your next employer may hear a skewed version. So you might decide to leave, but your next employer might hear a skewed version of what happened at your last job, right? And it may be filled with lies. I know that this has happened to several people, right? I know as well, people call people up and say, hey, don't hire this person because X, Y, and Z. I've seen that happen to people, which is why, personally, I never listen when people do that. To me, it says more about the person who's calling than the individual they're calling about. I'm very sorry. I don't know why people do that. Anyway, I digress. In the Caribbean, mental health support is limited. Like, we're just talking about it. And when we talk about it, it's usually once a year on Mental Health Day. We usually speak about it in the context of maybe those persons who we may see on the street, that are not in their clothed in their right mind for whatever reason. Maybe they don't have the medication. I hope I am being politically correct. If I am not, forgive me, right? So mental health is more than that. Like, people go through other things, or it isn't talked about unless a particular issue happens, right? In our community, asking for help may work against you because you don't know who to trust. To ask for help also, or to admit that you are struggling and that you are having a hard time in this job, that's not something that you find very prevalent in the Caribbean community. Like there's some people that have that resource, that have those people, their tribe in their corner, but it's not across the board, right? And your friends and family, they're not the type of people that you may want to share these things with. And it's not because that they're bad people, but think about it. I know when I'm going through things and I share it with my mom, she gets very upset, right? I don't know if it happens to you. You may have a partner, you may have a best friend. They get very upset, either gas you up, or they may not, because they are so emotionally invested or they're close to you, they're not the voice of reasons, right? They're not the voice of reason. And so we may not have people to talk to. The other thing in the Caribbean is there are limited options, even if you leave. And even if you leave, you might be running straight into another work environment that is much worse or similar. It might be good, right? But it might be the same. And so we have these layers in the Caribbean. We have all these things that are going on. And so all these add to the burnout. Think about it. All these add to the burnout. And so type 2 burnout, which is a toxic environment burnout, TEB, TEB, the TEB, toxic environment burnout, just feels isolating. It feels like you are alone. So you're dealing with this stress at work. You're in a small community with limited options. You don't feel like you could talk to anyone, that you could talk about it. You can't easily leave. And if you do, there might be fallout, right? It might damage you professionally. And so we have all these things going on with us. Now, if what I've said to you so far has resonated with you, if this is you, then drop an emoji in the comments. Drop an emoji in the comments so I see, because I could see the timestamps, right? That you are focused and that you are aware and that you're like, oh my God, this is me. This is me. So if you're at this point and you're like, okay, which one of these am I going through? Here's some additional questions to ask yourself. So type 1, if you're going through the type 1 burnout, which is from overwork, ask yourself these questions. Do I genuinely like my boss and team? This is how you'll know, by the way. Do I genuinely like my boss and team? Do I feel supported when I ask for help? Does the work feel meaningful? Would I feel better with a week off, right? I just need some time. Is it a people stress or is it a work volume situation, right? And so if you've answered yes to 2 or more or all of this, then it's type 1. You are overworked. Right? However, I'm going to ask you these questions for type 2, which is TEB, toxic environment burnout. Do I feel anxious going to work? And it could be on a Sunday or whenever. When you're going to work, do you feel anxious? What about this one? Am I constantly second guessing myself. So I ran out. I need to get a bigger SD card, for real. I need to get a bigger SD card because my recording time ran out. So let's continue from the next questions. Let's see if you answer to these questions. Yes, you are experiencing type 2 burnout, TEB, toxic environment burnout. So do you feel like you have to watch your back? Like you have to watch your back? Do you feel like you're walking on eggshells? Are you being excluded, undermined, criticized? It's a huge one, those two. Would a vacation delay the dread and not just fix it or eliminate it? Has your confidence taken a hit? And so if you answer these with all yeses, right, you are in a situation where you have toxic environment burnout. And it's so important that you are honest with yourself. It's so important that you are honest with what's going on so that you can help yourself. So now that we've spoken about the problem, I've diagnosed the problem for you, you know what it is, you know it's two types. Here's what helps. And I've used some of these techniques, if not all. Actually, I've used all of these techniques, right? So name it. You have to name what's going on and be honest with what's going on, because one of the things from my mindset work and all the work that I do in coaching with the subconscious mind and all of that, it's important for you to name the emotion. When you name the emotion, when you name the situation, you are better able to manage it. You are better able to come to a place where you can start talking about what can work. You can be in those discussions. But if you're feeling something, if something is going on and you're not talking about it, it doesn't help. So you have to name it. You have to name those emotions and the situation. It gives you greater agency in working with them. And it's also important as well because, when we are in these types of situations, we tend to blame ourselves. We think it's us. We think we're not good enough. It takes a hit to our confidence. If we don't know what's going on, we think it's about us and we get stuck in that belief, right? And based on my neural energetic wiring training, if you get stuck, if that belief gets wired into you, you will stay in that environment. It is possible that you can stay in a toxic work environment much longer than you need to, because you are not naming it. You have the mindset that it is me, it's not them. So that's why it's important for you to name it and to be honest, the emotion and what exactly is going on. Okay, so that's the first step. The other thing, which is number 2, is when you are in those environments, we spoke a little bit about your nervous system and stuff like that. You need to regulate your nervous system because your body or your nervous system views the environment as a threat. This is why your productivity drops. This is why you can't concentrate, okay? Because your body views the environment as a threat, and your body's response mechanism is to keep you safe, and that is what it's going to do. So it's not gonna burn a whole lot of energy trying to manage your time. It is spending more energy having you in that anxious state, having you in that state of hypervigilance, because you are constantly scanning the environment for threats. So you need to regulate your nervous system. And the way you regulate your nervous system is, one way is by EFT tapping. I have some shots on my YouTube chat, on this YouTube, where you tap through, and that's really going through the acupuncture points, right? And I'm telling you, it works. It works because it calms you all the way down. And so tapping is something that you could go to the bathroom and tap through it. Now, if you're interested in that, you can reach out to me and I can help you create your own tapping video, a customized version for you, but tapping helps, right? So I believe in that. And deep breathing. When we are in that state where our nervous system is not regulated, we breathe more from the chest. We don't do deep belly breaths. So something that you can do is to feel more grounded is you put your feet on the floor and you can inhale for 4 on a count of 4 and exhale through your mouth on 6. So you inhale, counting 4, and your exhale is much longer. Make sure your feet are on the floor. You're gonna feel really grounded. Deep breathing. The other thing too, and this is something that I am learning about because I'm doing my master coaching certification, is your gut. You have to support your gut health, because between 70 to 80% of the microbes live in your gut, right? And that helps with your immune system. I may be mixing it up, but your gut supports your immune system. Don't crucify me. I just read it last night. We're on that topic. It's so funny because we're on the topic of biofeedback. So if you have an Apple Watch or those other brands, I don't know, I love Apple, Apple Watch or stuff like that, you can tell, there are apps that you can tell when your blood pressure is elevated, your heartbeat, that sort of thing. That is biofeedback. But your gut health is super important. And so one of the things you can do is also eat foods to support your gut, because if your immune system is weakened, it means you're going to get sick. So everything plays a role, right? You have stress, it diminishes, it messes with your gut, you get sick, you're stressed out, you can't pay your bill. You get the picture, right? So you want to pay attention to that. Actually, this wasn't on my notes, but I just remembered looking at the video, listening to it last night while working through that, and so I thought I would share it. So physical movement, exercise, all of these work in tandem. Journal as well. I want to put this in here. It's not in my notes, but it's something that has helped me, is journaling. Journal it out. Another thing that has helped me is reading my Bible. I don't know, Again, these are not in my notes, but I am telling you what helps me. I read my Bible and I read a specific psalm, Psalm 91. And this isn't anything woo or anything like that. From since I was a child, whenever I was afraid, I used to be afraid of the dark. I used to be and my mother would just say, read Psalm 91, read Psalm 91, read Psalm 91. So I'm telling you, these are things that I do, and that has helped me, right? But they all work together. The other thing, and this was supposed to be number 3, I think I am on what, 4 now or 5. Document everything, and this is coming from Waveney, who has an HR background. Document everything, every email, every conversation, everything, witnesses, everything. Document everything, right? Because if it doesn't on paper, if it's not on paper, it doesn't exist. Document everything to protect yourself, right? And number 4, build strategic relationships. So network, and this is outside your organization. Network outside your organization. Go meet people strategically, right? Strategically. All right. Know your options. What are your options? Because as we mentioned before, the problem isn't you. The problem is the work environment. And toxic work environments do not just go away. So you have to manage you. You have to manage you to survive, to get through this. So know your options. So can the environment change? Sometimes they do, most times no. Do you have the power to change it? I don't think so. You may, and this is not me being pessimistic, this is me being real. You may or you may not. Do you have an exit strategy? This one is important, having an exit strategy. Or would you like to stay? Right? And so this is something to think about. Get professional support. I've lost track of which number this is because I inserted all the other stuff before, right? Get professional support, speak to a coach, get help with coaching. Like I mentioned, I can customize a EFT tapping video for you. I can create a hypnosis video audio for you. Or if it's a much deeper, you may need to speak to a therapist. Maybe you might feel comfortable speaking to your pastor, but get professional support. Okay. And then number 7, it's important to protect your identity. It's important to protect you, and it's important to understand that you are not your role, that you are the one who brings value to that organization, right? Sometimes we think it's the other way around. Your job does not define you. And it's important for me to say this because if you're in a toxic work environment, if you have type 2 burnout, if you have toxic environment burnout, you may be feeling like the issue is you and your confidence may be low or at a hit, right? But your job does not define your worth. You are worth more. Just because you're human, you can't put a value on you, okay? And you bring your own uniqueness and your own flair to that job, to that organization. It doesn't define you, okay? And your value doesn't depend on your paycheck. Your value doesn't depend on your paycheck. Yes, people, they may pay you $5,000 or they pay you whatever, but you are valuable. And I think that, someone out there needs to know that, because when you're going through, when you are in the thick of things, when you're going through stuff, you cannot see the forest for the trees. And so I am here to tell you today, you are valuable, right? You are worthy. And it's important to know this because when we're going through this as well, we tell ourselves stories and we may tend to believe people who are in authority, and they may say things that damage our confidence, or just by us not being able to get through, we think it's about us. It's not you, it's the environment. And so new managers need supportive leadership. That's what we need. New managers, every manager needs supportive leadership. We need psychological safety. We need resources to succeed. You need recognition, to be recognized, right? And an environment that supports your growth and development. And if you are not getting this at your place of work, then it's not about you. It doesn't reflect anything about your potential. It speaks more about the organization. It's a reflection on them. And so I really wanted to share this with you, and I hope that you see why. Because like I mentioned in the beginning, there are two types of burnout, and if you don't know which one, you could be very well be going home, somebody saying drink a glass of wine, or have a long shower, or you think you need a vacation, or you think you need more time management. And it's not that. It's not you, it's the work environment. And so sometimes one of the bravest things, sometimes the bravest things we can do is to recognize and become aware that we can't change the environment. Sometimes the bravest thing we can do is choose ourselves. Whatever choosing yourself means, sometimes the bravest and the only thing we can do is choose ourselves. And so I really hope that you enjoy this episode. Send me a DM. Let me know if you did enjoy it. I certainly enjoyed sharing with you and communicating it here with you, coming into your home or wherever you are listening to me, sharing this with you, because this is something that we struggle with. It's not really talked about. Like I said, once a year on October 8th, mental health, it pops up when something negative happens in the community or what have you. But the reality is many of us in the workplace, many persons, they're going through a very tough time. And it's not just about overwork, it is about the work environment. The world has changed so drastically, so choose yourself. I hope that by me sharing this information with you, it makes you feel a little bit in control. It makes you feel like, yes, I am not crazy. I know what's going on. I hope that does that for you, and that you are able to think through your next steps clearly. And until then, I'll see you on another wavelength. Bye.